And I think, yeah, the learner should be at the center of this world. So let's move on. Thank you for sharing that. Let's move on to our next one, which is really around the assessment technologies. Darren, if you want to maybe just talk to the purpose here, and then we'll open the panel. If Darren's having some connectivity, are you there?
No. I had a mute problem. I had a technology problem.
A finger problem.
So we're looking at here in terms of, when you do assessment, what technologies are you using? So people go, oh, look, we use Dropbox. Great. The thing is, Dropbox is one technology. Then you're using Excel to transfer the information that was on Dropbox into an Excel spreadsheet, which you are then sending via email, which is another technology, to an assessor who then opens it on their Apple Mac, because you are using Microsoft in that technology, and all of a sudden you're using 6 and 7 and 8 technologies. Now, then you're doing reporting, so you're moving from an Excel into a PDF or into a Word, and then you're doing, so we just, how much time is being spent per learner just flipping through the technologies, not even just flipping through. And, in a year, you're looking at 3 hours just to go from Excel to Word, Word to email back to Excel, and I mean, that's worth $480 or 480 Rand per learner just on the technology side. So we came to realize that there is not an end-to-end system. And I love what Rob said earlier, where he said, the LMSs or the e-learning systems are built for a very specific reason, but not for this. So the exploration was, well, what platforms are you using? How are you using? What are you using them for? And how does that work for you? So yeah, so this technology, I still don't think, from what we've seen in the research, there won't be an end-to-end solution. What the trick is that the technologies are becoming quite bespoke for what they do, and then they all talk to each other. So we're figuring out where we fit in, because we can take a lot of the Excel design work away, and like what Suzanne was saying, you can just download out of your technology into a CSV. So yeah, you're kind of just making use of the technology so you can help someone else, as opposed to you using the technology to create something to make use of it. So that's what this one was about, Judy. We were actually just looking at, what's going on in the technology space.
Okay, thanks. Robyn, would you like to comment?
Hi, I'd like to just check out whether what I'd love to talk about is the very basic level of how we assess what the student is saying or doing, or, right at that level. I'm hearing Darren talking about the next stage. Would you like to cover that now, or should we wait till another stage?
Go for it. No, go for it.
Okay, because that's been my preoccupation, to say, how can we use technology to really figure out what the student is thinking, in a way, what they can do, what they can't do, what they understand correctly, what they don't understand correctly, etc. So, and I think there's a lot of space to develop expertise there, because I think there have been some I've encountered quite entrenched views about technology at that interface. Like, for example, multiple choice questions, they're useless. Well, actually, you're talking about a structure. A question is, how do you use that structure to ask the right questions? And I think that's undervalued and underemphasized. I think when I was starting out on this journey, I encountered a professor of philosophy who used to terrify her third-year students in their final exam by setting them 20 multiple choice questions. But they were so difficult, you really had to know what was going on to even answer one of them, and it stretched their minds. And I thought, okay, so it's not about the structure, it's about what amount of thinking you put into that. And there's so many options now with, with graphics and, doing various things, matching, sequencing, all sorts of stuff like that, which goes beyond just, knowledge recall and starts to move into physical activities. And I'm very keen on simulations as well, visual simulations. I think there's lots of room to develop our thinking around simulations which don't just give, right or wrong answer, but actually move you into the logical consequences of the decision you took. So if you've got 5 options and you choose one, well, you'll go to the consequence of that, and then you've got to get yourself out of it somehow if it was a bad decision. And at the end of 5 or 6 of those, you get a summary of, well, that's what's arisen because of your decisions. Do you want to try again? That sort of thing is really powerful. And imagine if we could build more and more around that. And I think our aim has been to create a platform which can be used. We've used it in this particular space of digital skills, but in other areas so the data we're getting right at the beginning is much more powerful than maybe it is at the moment. Thanks.
Sorry, I'm talking on mute. Jennifer, over to you.
Yeah, I'd like to concur what Robyn's saying, because I'm also exploring more methodologies, not just within a learning and teaching space, using such technologies as helping with using decision trees to help with exercises in technology. But our challenge in South Africa is that fear of technology that we're still trying to overcome. And because of people's lack of courage to embark on using technology, they rather restrict the use of technology because it makes their life easier. So we have some organizational development interventions we need to implement into South Africa. No biggie. But it is about people, because they have a reservation around technology, they tend to project that onto the learner. And my experience is a lot like, as people were saying earlier, smartphone technology has really revolutionized people's digital skills. And just because you're not sat at a computer or a laptop doesn't mean to say you can't be digitally savvy. And then the methodology of using technology to collect more evidence in real time of someone actually using systems like driving a Dover truck or a forklift driver actually moving pallets around, that demonstrates actual competencies. We have literacy issues in South Africa, so we can also use digital technology to enable us to do an interview and ask questions of the individual and upload that. So the technology really, if we do embrace it, can really enable us to be a lot more cost effective and overcome a lot of barriers people have, and then also encourage them to embrace the digital space. From a real-time reporting perspective, I am experiencing my clients wonder at being able to see the progress of their learners and their assessors, and enabling us to actually use it to do performance management and payment and just-in-time payments upon completion of assessed experience. People saying they're doing the work as it from an assessor's perspective, but then they're actually not able to produce the evidence of the actual assessment taking place. So it's things like that, that technology really, and if you have a really good EPOE system linked to a good LMS system, really can revolutionize people's skills, which really we do need to embrace because with the impact of COVID, we do a good thing. I know it's a weird thing to say, a pandemic's been a good thing, but in a way for us, from a digital perspective, the pandemic has actually helped shift and overcome a lot of barriers because people have had to embrace technology. So that's, from our perspective, is things that we are dealing with here in South Africa. So it's not that the learners don't want to. Sometimes it is the assessor or the client or the verifier who has the reservation. And it's about being sensitized to that and being able to reach out and offer that support. And that's something that Darren and I have really learned in the last 6 months is quite critical to help overcome those change challenge.
Thanks, Jennifer. And I think that speaks a little bit to what Susanna said earlier in the beginning of the conversation, was around how technologically savvy learning professionals are becoming really expensive in the market. And I think it's really important for us to develop tech savvy or digitally savvy assessors and moderators and facilitators, because it's often their fear that's limiting the learning experience and not the other way around. So just to weigh back on that, Susanna, your view on this area?
Yeah, so obviously what Darren was saying about how everyone's using different systems, that's definitely our experience in the UK. What we find is the portfolio side is the one that the masses use, all the learners will use and all the assessors. But then in a college or a training provider, they will have to have other systems. So there's a funding system, a management information system that draws the funding down from the government or the employer. There is learner management systems, so there might be a whole sort of VLE system if the portfolio doesn't do that as well. We've got initial assessment, so maths and English testing at the beginning to see where they're up to. Do they need to do, because everybody that does an apprenticeship in the UK has to have at least a level 2 maths and English. And then we have hidden learning needs assessment tools, which is another platform. And then also I think it was Robyn was talking about plagiarism so we a lot of universities in the UK use Turnitin, so the universities want to have a Turnitin integration as well. So it's been really interesting. We've seen a shift actually in the UK. So probably about 12 years ago, we found that the customers are asking for this utopia of this all-in-one end-to-end system. We want one system, we want to buy from one supplier, and we want it all in one supplier. But then what they found is some suppliers went off and they started trying to build the extra module that they didn't have, but that was never as strong as their original module. And that's and then they realized, well, actually what they wanted was best in breed. They didn't want an end-to-end, they wanted a best in breed. So they wanted the best in breed e-portfolio, the best in breed funding system, the best in breed initial assessment, but then they wanted them to talk to each other. So there wasn't double entry and double keying. And also, with that comes error, because somebody could type something in incorrectly, for example. So as APIs in technology became available, that became a lot easier to be able to integrate. But obviously then you need the collaboration between the organizations, because sometimes there is a competitive thing where they're like, well, we're not integrating with you because we've got an e-portfolio. We know it's not very good, but we would rather our customers buy our e-portfolio, and we're going to make them because it's easier for them to integrate with our system than it would be with yours. So there has been that kind of friction a little bit in the UK, but that is now coming round. The consumer power is now forcing the larger competitors to integrate with each other, which is fantastic, because it should all be about the learner really at the end. That's our belief anyway as an organization. We at OneFile, we have started building out the end-to-end solution, but we are a long way behind. Just like if somebody was to start building an e-portfolio today, they would be a long way behind OneFile. So we acknowledge it isn't going to have all the bells and whistles on that a much larger management information system that's been going for 20 years is going to have. That's going to come in time. But again, some of our customers are seeing the benefit of that integration, and they love working with OneFile, so they would rather spend their money with us, basically. So it's been really fascinating. And I mean, obviously data is huge now. Everybody wants to pull data out. It's the new currency, isn't it, to have data? And when you've got data in different products, it's very difficult to get a higher level eye over the whole sort of story of what's going on. So quite a lot of our customers will ask, for example, for the data to be drawn out on a 24-hour basis into what we would call a data dump or a data lake, and then they can pull that into Power BI, for example, and then they can build their own dashboards, pulling the data in from the different sources, which is fantastic then, because back in the day there wasn't that ability to pull and draw the data in from lots of different areas. So now they can compare the progress against the funding, for example, which they wouldn't have been able to do previously unless they did have an end-to-end system. But amazing products like Power BI now makes that possible, which is and it's only going to improve at the end of the day. It's only going to head one way, so which is good news. Thanks, Judy.
Very much. Thank you. Then let's move on to our next area, Darren.